Hello and welcome. You're here with Miss Libby Rose. Hello. And today we're going to be making a super simple seaside kimono. Now to do this, we're going to be using Simplicity Pattern 1108 here. So we're going to do a sew along with this pattern. So first things first is you need to open up your pattern and get the pieces that you'll need. Now we're going to be sewing along with B. So if you look at view B and if you open up your sewing directions, you will see that the pattern pieces that you need for kimono A and B, we're doing B, but it says it for both on here. So you need to have, so it is piece number 6, 7, so they're the main part. So that's the front and the sleeve in one. So you've got front, which is piece number 6, and back, which is piece number 7. And then 8, 9, and 4 are all your facings and neckband and things. So they're just the other little bits. So if you take out those pieces, get all of those cut out. Get the instructions with you as well. Now there's 9 steps here, so I'm going to be going through each of those 9 steps to make it super easy for you to understand and just fun for us to be making together, really. So those pieces cut out around your size. Now if you don't want to restrict your size, so say you think, oh, but actually I might want to make it for my friend who's a large. I mean, this pattern goes from extra small right to extra, extra large. So you might not want to restrict yourself. So if you cut it out around the outside and then you can just fold it in. I know it's a little bit difficult around curves. You can fold it into your size. Or there is the little rotary pattern tool that you can use, and that does allow you to make little holes in the pattern and then you could chalk around it. But same, there are ways around it and I'll show you those as well. So if you do just want to cut it out for the big, it's not easy, but yeah, but if you do want to cut it out to the biggest pieces, then that's okay too. We can work through that. You will also need some interfacing. So if you get yourself just some lightweight interfacing, and that's what it looks like. And then when you've cut out your pieces, the first thing to do is get your iron and iron them all down nice and flat. Get all the creases out and iron it down nice and flat. Then get your fabric out ready and we're ready to start cutting. So now that we've got our fabric laid out and our pattern pieces all cut out ready, you'll see what I've done. So this is just my little tip on how you can keep it, so keep all of your sizes on the pattern. I've just cut along the notches and turned it in. Okay, so I've just turned in the paper so that I can cut still around the medium piece. So I'm just turning it with those curves, and you could use a bit of tailor's chalk as well to go around your sizing that you'd like. So you can see here I'm going to cut out the back and sleeve, so the back and sleeve is all in one. So cutting those out, the fabric is on the fold, so I'm cutting out 2. And then I'm doing my front, so it's front and sleeve in one and cut 2. So I've got my fabric on the fold, so I'm going to be cutting 2 at the same time. And I'll try and get around those curves so I can cut the medium, but still keep all of the sizes on the pattern. So I've got good longevity on my pattern there. So get all of those pieces cut out. Then also cut out your facings and bands and things. So this is piece number 8 and it's the front neck band. So you're cutting out 4 of the fabric and 2 of the interfacing for that one. And the back lower band, cut 2 on fold of fabric, cut 1 on fold of interfacing, And then this teeny piece, which is the back neck band, and then that said cut 1 on fold of interfacing and 2 on fold of fabric. So get all of those cut out and then come back and we'll go through the steps. And we're back. So how did you get on with all of your cutting out? I know that there was a few little fiddly bits there, but hopefully you've got through it all and it's good. So I know that I said cut everything out and let's go straight to step 1. But before that, I would like you to first of all, make sure that everything is pressed really nice and flat. So go through, press the fabrics, and just make sure that it's all nice and flat. Then go through, and what I'm going to do is use my trusty overlocker and go through each of the Hello and welcome back. How did you get on with your cutting out? I hope that that was all pretty straightforward for you. If not, do please pop a comment for me, or you can just email me, drop me a message. I'm at Miss Libby Rose. So do at any point, do ask, because it's always good to ask for help. So let's get on. Before we start with step 1, if you could go through, press down all your fabric so it's nice and flat. It's really worth it. The cutting out process and getting everything nice before you even start is so important for a lovely professional finish, and also so that things fit together. So press everything down. Make sure that you have made a mark. So get a chalk or a little pencil mark wherever there's a little triangle, so a notch mark. Make sure that you've notched in on your fabric as well. So that's important. Then can go through now everything. Now I'm just jumping forward. This will come up in the steps, but I think it's easier to do it now. Everything that has an interfacing piece, iron that interfacing on now. Okay, so let's say I'll pick up piece number 4, so that's the back neck band, and I'll take one of these back neck bands and I'll pop the interfacing on, so matte side up in the air, shiny side against the wrong side of the fabric, and iron that on. And then, so I've got one piece with interfacing and one piece without. Same with the other pieces. So everything that's got interfacing with it, just choose one of the pieces and iron that interfacing on there. So that's already done. And then if you can, go around all of your edges with a zigzag stitch, or if your sewing machine has an overlock stitch or an over edge foot, use that. Or if you've got an overlocker, then go ahead and overlock the outside. Try not to lose any of the fabric because we need some for seam allowance. So we go around the edges and do that. I'm going to overlock mine. So apply interfacing wherever it says to, wherever we've cut out interfacing with fabric, and overlock all the edges. Now you might find it easier to keep hold of your pattern pieces next to the piece for now, and if you're just starting out with patterns, then do so. Keep hold of the pattern pieces next to it. So also, when I say pick this up, or when you're reading the instructions and you're picking pieces up, you'll remember what piece that is and what they're referring to. And also, just I'll say again, make sure that you have, wherever you see a triangle, that you've put a little chalk mark there too. So do all of those processes, and then let's come back. I'm going to jump straight into step 1 on the sheet. So this is a proper sew along, and we'll go through, but actually it will all come together quite quickly now. It's this first part that is the kind of more tedious part, but it's worth it. So go ahead and then we'll get going. So now we're at the sewing table and we have all of our preparations done, and we can start with the construction. So let's start with the back. So we've got a center back line along the seam here. So there's a center back line going down the back, and we're going to sew that in first of all. Now throughout the pattern it says use 5/8 seam allowance, so that's 1.5 centimetres, and if you can check on these lines next to your sewing machine foot, you'll see all the different numbers there. So if you'll see this one says 1 and then a line and then 2, so I know that the line between is my 1.5 seam allowance. Or I can look above there and I see 5/8 is that same line as well. So whichever one you prefer to watch, that's what you'll be using, 5/8 or 1.5 centimetres seam allowance. And let's get going. So we'll do that centre back line. And now I'm going to open it up. So I have a full back piece, and you could press that centre back seam and then go to the wrong side and press it open. And now we want this with right sides showing. And I'm going to place the front, so one of my front sections on top, right sides together. If you can see the sleeve, match that up. And we're going to sew the shoulders, so all the way along the top here. Leave this open, that's for your arm. And then around down here as well. So again, using that 1.5 or 5/8 seam allowance, do the line across the top here. That's your arm and your shoulder. And then under your arm, going down your side seam here. So 1.5 or 5/8 seam allowance, go right ahead and do the same on the other side. And then press those seams open. And you can make some notches around the curves so that it opens up nicely. So we're now notching the curves and opening up the seams. So now you've put the main part of the kimono together, open up the seams and put some notches in so that you can see that it sits nice and flat as it goes with that curve if you notch in the seams. So once you've done that, then you open up the seams on the top as well. Then you open up the seams So the straight line doesn't need notches, it's just curves that need notches. Pinning up, pressing flat, and again on the other side. Then once you've pressed it all, you can put, once you've pressed it all, once you're happy that you've pressed and notched it all, put the main part of the kimono aside. So you can put this aside and get all of the facing bits. So the ones that have interfacing on them. Kimono to one side, I'm going to go to the centre back, so there's my centre back seam, and I'm going to go across this section from the two marks that I see there. There's two chalk marks that are left from the notch on the pattern, and I'm going to set my machine to the longest stitch. So I'm on straight stitch and I'm doing the longest stitch I can. Now just below that line I've got really long bit of thread hanging out there. That's great. I want to keep that. I'm not doing my backwards. I'm just doing a super long stitch, and it's almost gathering itself as I'm sewing the whole way along, right up until this other chalk line. And again, I leave a super long thread. So I've left a super long thread there, and I've got this gather stitch. It almost wants to gather itself already. But I'm going to leave it for now, and I'll put this to one side, making sure I've got nice long threads hanging off the top there. I'll put that to one side, and now I take out all my facing pieces. So now I've got my facing pieces. Now these are the ones that have interfacing attached to them. So the ones we already ironed on facing over here. So I've got piece 4 at the top here. That's the centre back. Then I've got 9 on both sides, and I've got 8 along the bottom. So I'm going to put right sides together and sew these all up. And now that we've put together the whole of the band that's going to go around the outside of the kimono, we're going to stitch the two bands together going around the outside. So the smaller part is the inside, and this is all the outside. So you're going to follow along the whole way around. And now that these bands are attached the whole way around, you will need to flip them so the right way round, roll so you get a nice sort of feel, notch, go along and notch. When you get to a curve, put any notches in. So you're folding, rolling, pressing. When you get to a curve, I'm going to flip over here to a curve now. So I can see that this is curving around. When I flip this over, it's going to pull a little bit. So I'm going to put a few notches in there as I go along as well. So notching, ironing, clipping, little tiny clips up to the stitch line and not over. And then I flip and press that down. Now we're going to start to apply the band to the whole of the outside of the kimono. So we're going to start with this centre back. There's my centre back seam, And here is the stitching that we did earlier with the 2 long threads that I can pull in to gather. So I'm just holding on to one of the threads. You can do it on both sides, and you want to really gather that stitching in, because we want to fit this small section here from our facing. So that's the shoulders to the shoulder line. Okay, so you're going to pull in that gathering as much as you can to make it fit. Now you want lots of pins now. So if you get that gathering nice and easy, nice and even, it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. It'll be easy for some of you, not easy for all, I know. So I've pulled that in, and now I'm going to double check, and that looks like it's fitting. Okay, so actually I might give that a quick press in place. The iron certainly is getting a workout today. So I've pressed that gather down so that can just stay in place for me. Now, I know that the soft side of this facing is going to be on the inside, and the harder side, the side that's got interfacing behind it, is going to be on the outside to give it a strength from the outside. So I'm going to go around and put these. So I'm going to put this one side attached here so that it will flip up, and this will be the inside. So I'm going to go along, get my shoulders in place first of all, and start with the pinning. So once these shoulder seams are matched and the gather is good inside, then you can go around the whole kimono stitching these together so that when they come up, then you'll just have to stitch the outside on. So go right ahead and sew the whole way around. So you're sewing this facing the whole way around the kimono. So now that you've got all of one side of the band sewn in, you want to flip up the side with the interfacing on. So we're just going to flip that up and turn down. If you've got a zigzagged edge, I've got an overlocked edge, and I'm just going to turn that down. So then it's creating the band. That's the final part of the band going all the way around. So I'm just going to turn that down and then do a stitch the whole way around. So does that make sense? I have just sewn this side without the interfacing on the inside, and now I turn this in, so the interfacing, the harder side out, and then I flip it down, put some pins in, keep going around, press that again. I know it's so much pressing, but just press that down nicely. And then you'll just do a top stitch, so just a normal running stitch the whole way around, and then your band is finished. So now I've pinned the whole band in place. I've folded it down to fold away the overlocking. That's tucked away inside now. Pinned and pressed in place, and now I'm just going to stitch as close as I can to the edge, making sure that it's enclosing any of the other stitch that's inside. So I'm just going to go right ahead now and sew. Now that the band has been applied the whole way around, the only final part is the edge of these sleeves. So we'll just fold those up once and once again, pop a pin in and top stitch the whole way around both of the sleeves, and then you're done. Hello, and we're back. Well done. How did you go? I would love to hear. I'd love to hear your ups and downs, or if you just found it really easy and breezed through, or if there were certain things that maybe didn't make sense, or if I helped in any way, that would be great as well. Now, what would you do differently next time? Now you've done it once. I know what I would do is I would change this band to a contrasting colour. So I think that I would really funk it up and put this in a different colour, and I think that would look really cool. But most of all, what I'd like is a belt to go with mine. So I've cut just a long piece along the whole width of my fabric, and I've cut it so wide. You could cut yours as wide as you like. And I'm going to fold it in half lengthwise, right sides together, and just do a little cut off the edges to turn it into a tie. So you've got those diagonal edges on the side, so one and the other. And then all I'm simply going to do is sew down, all the way down. Once I get to the middle, I'm going to leave a gap in the middle, then all the way down and up the other side. So I'm going to sew the whole way along and leave a gap in the center. And then I just turn it through that gap in the middle. And I tend to leave it in the center because I like to have these ties at the end nice and neat. And I think that you can lose that more, that stitching in the center, you can lose it. You'd not really see it, I mean, rather than, I think you can notice it on the edges. That's in my opinion. Give it a quick press flat. Especially those edges. So roll it down nice and flat, giving a press on those tie bits at the end. And then you can just stitch up that middle bit either on the machine or by hand. And then I think that tie really finishes it off nicely. Yeah, that's better. And again, I think that I would do that contrast band here, and then a contrasting belt around the middle. But that's just for next time that, I could give it a go again. And I'd love to hear what you would do differently if you did it again. I'd love to see what you've made, how yours turned out, if they looked anything like the picture on the front of the pattern, or if yours was totally different, which might be quite cool as well, because I think that's quite artistic if it turns out differently. But yeah, thank you so much for following me with this make, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye for now.